I am Chris Shira, Robert Harding, Justin Ritzel, the Citizen Sports Weekly for April 29, 2022. We are back. And of course, why are we back? Because, hey, there's a draft. It feels a little drafty. The NFL draft is going on. Last night was the first round. Even though my team, the Dolphins, did not have a first-round pick, which is great because we got Tyreek Hill. I still watched every pick. It was a lot of fun to see the intrigue, the trades, the surprises and everything, and of course the spectacle that is known as the NFL draft. So, guys, I'll let you guys do most of the talking because your teams actually did have picks in the first round, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot of these players as well as you guys do. I do have a list in front of me who went where and everything, but I'm not a draft maven. Don't pretend to be one, but it was a fun first round. I'll say that. Of course, it went way too long. I mean, 11:30ish is a little too late, but what are you going to do? So, all right, Robert, go ahead. I'll let you start first. Your thoughts on the first round?
Well, first of all, I think they did a better job managing the time. I mean, there have been years when we haven't heard the first pick until 8:30. So they had, I think, the first two out by 8:20, 8:25, somewhere in there. So that was better. I think they could do a little bit better job. We don't need all the pomp and circumstance at the start. Let's get down to brass tacks here. But, for me, the two big stories were the trades involving existing NFL players. You had obviously A.J. Brown moving to Philadelphia, which story came out today that, he didn't necessarily want that trade, but clearly Tennessee felt like they couldn't pay him or come close to the number that he wanted and decided to part ways. And so he lands with the Eagles, which, that team is suddenly looking good by NFC East standards, which, say what you will about that. And then Hollywood Brown getting traded from the Ravens to the Cardinals. That was a big one. Certainly bolsters the Cardinals offense, and Lamar Jackson was not happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame him. I mean, that team is not deep on weapons as it is. He's got Mark Andrews still there at tight end, but, they're not known for their receivers in Baltimore. So to lose him is a huge blow. Big win for the Cardinals there to pick up a receiver of his caliber to add to the receivers that they already have there. Certainly, I think he'll fill the void left behind by Christian Kirk, who I think he signed with Jacksonville in the offseason. So, those were the two big ones. That looking at it from the Bills' perspective, they got Kyer Elam, cornerback from Florida, who he's going to bring some size. He also has great speed. He has the traits of who he could develop into a really great NFL cornerback, and certainly gives the Bills an immediate number 2 option next to Trey White, who of course is recovering from ACL surgery. So that was a big need for them in the draft, and they addressed it right away. Moved up a couple picks to do it because they felt like Elam was the guy, and really the last one that was on their. I think Brandon Beane came out and said that Elam was the last one on the list with a first-round grade. So they wanted to move up to get him, even if it was just a couple spots. So big draft pick there for the Bills. I think he could contribute right away for sure. But yeah, a lot of movement in the draft. There were teams moving up to pick guys and teams moving back, and lots of activity last night. I thought from that standpoint, aside from wanting to see what the Bills do, for me, just seeing all the movement, especially involving those 2 wide receivers I mentioned, it was quite a night for the NFL.
Justin, I was thinking about you last night when the Packers were on the clock, and I mean, what is it? I know you don't agree with the picks, I'm sure, in some ways, but why can't the Packers pick a wide receiver in the first round? What's going on with these guys?
I think, and obviously the Packers are a big part of this. We're going to look back on this offseason as the year that receivers kind of transformed into much like running backs. Teams do not I don't want to say they don't value the position, but they don't value the individual player at that position like years past. Because frankly, and we've seen this the last kind of 3 years of the draft, you hear going in every draft that, ooh, this is the deepest class of wide receivers that we've had in quite some time. Well, we've been talking about this for 3 straight years now. At some point, you just have to realize the position is becoming a bit of a dime a dozen. Like you don't need to spend a top 5 pick on a wide receiver, much like teams kind of learned you don't need to spend a top 5 pick on a running back. You can find those guys in the 2nd and 3rd round that can be really good. You know, just look at who the all-pro receivers have been the last few years. Obviously, you know, you had like Julio Jones as a Hall of Famer. He was a top, I think, 10 or 11 pick. But Devontae Adams, 2nd round pick. Tyreek Hill was a mid-round pick. Cooper Kupp, I think, was a 3rd round pick. Deebo Samuel, 2nd round pick. You just don't need to spend 1st round picks to get guys like that. You can find them in the later rounds. And I'll say this too, and no offense, Chris, because your Dolphins are a part of this, but I think you have to look at who are the teams that are trading away all these great receivers and who are the teams that are acquiring them. Are you more willing to give the benefit of the doubt to a team like the Packers and the Chiefs who traded away their top receivers? Or are you going to give it to teams like the Raiders or the Dolphins that have kind of been mired in mediocrity for 2 decades? You know, I think that there's something to the, you know, looking at the process of the good teams and saying, you know, maybe they're onto something. Which is why I don't have a problem with what the Packers did. I think that for years and years, they've tried to be a finesse team with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, who's more of a kind of slashing running back versus a power running back. And hey, that's led to a lot of regular season wins. But what happens when you run into a tough physical team like the Buccaneers or the 49ers in the playoffs? Well, you lose. So I think that as far as the Packers are concerned, this is a transformation from we're not going to be a team that necessarily throws it up and down the field on you. We're going to beat you up physically in those cold January nights at Lambeau Field where it's a lot harder to have an effective passing game. And then you just hope that Aaron Rodgers can click with the receiver or two that they inevitably draft today and tomorrow, which, you know, he's shown a history, whether it be Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, James Jones, Devontae Adams. He doesn't need 1st-round receivers. So I think that whole narrative is kind of overblown. They're going to add to that receiver room today or tomorrow, and they'll be totally competent players. But I think you can be excited about what they're potentially going to have on defense. You know, 7 first-round picks are on that defense right now, and that doesn't include some really good veterans who were acquired via free agency or trade. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with what the Packers did. Looking at the draft as a whole, the 1st round at least, this has to be the most boring, you know, uninteresting 1st round I can recall. I think that looking at this draft, not a single transcendent talent at the top. You know, it was a very light year for quarterbacks. Only 1 quarterback went in the 1st round. And I think that kind of hurts the entertainment value. Is a very meat and potatoes 1st round, you know. A lot of defensive players, you know, offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Obviously, a bunch of receivers were taken, but just not that transcendent, like, oh, this guy's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Even like Aiden Hutchinson, who was, you know, I think considered by most people to be the consensus top pick. He ends up going number 2. I think most people said, like, oh, he's going to be a solid, productive NFL player, but certainly not the next TJ Watt or, you know, Myles Garrett type pass rusher. So that's kind of my takeaway is, you know, a lot of teams that maybe could have used a quarterback. The Panthers come to mind. Decided, you know what, we don't like the value here. We're going to maybe wait and take a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round and see if we can develop them that way, which is smart. There's no need to tie yourself to a 1st-round quarterback if you're not absolutely in love with the kid. So I think teams made a lot of smart decisions, but it was the least sexy draft I can remember ever watching.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of talk about the Jets that the Jets traded back in the first round, and I think everybody's applauding the Jets in the draft for once, which is never ever happens. Usually the Jets screw up the draft, and they did a pretty good, not on paper at least, they did a pretty good job. So, but it will be interesting to see, Justin, where the quarterbacks go, because like you said, there are, I mean, Malik Willis, Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I mean, the Cincinnati quarterback whose name escapes me. But yeah, I think there's some good value there. And it'll be interesting to see if any teams decide to try to trade up to get one of these guys. What's going to happen tonight with trades and everything. I'm curious what my Dolphins are going to do when they pick with their first selection at 102 in the third round. Will they go edge rusher? Will they go offensive lineman? Will they go linebacker? It can be curious to see what they do there. But like I said, I'm fine with the Dolphins only having 4 draft picks. I mean, we got Tyreek Hill. To me, it was a great trade. I mean, there's some risks. I mean, this is a guy that we got paid, and when you get paid, sometimes you don't play as well as you do before you got paid. And then the other thing is, he is 29. Is he starting to show signs of age and decline? I don't know. We'll find out. But I think that the fact that the Dolphins already have Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, it's not like Hill's got to be a one-man band here. The top receiver there. They'll have plenty of time to get things right with him, and he doesn't have to be the star for that offense to click. So, Robert, your Bills, you talked a little bit about it, picking a cornerback. On day 2, what positions do you think they might try to select?
Well, I think that you got to look at receiver. For one, they do have some good receivers already. Obviously, obviously they got Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis, who really showed out in the playoffs last season. They brought back Isaiah McKenzie, but depth is always important. That was one reason for drafting a corner, is that they lack a little depth there, and so you go for a guy that can possibly start when the season starts in September. So receiver is an option. I think interior offensive line, anything offensive line is important, to have depth there. I could see them adding some depth along the defensive line as well, because they did lose what's his name escapes me now, Harrison Phillips to Minnesota. So, he was a draft pick from a few years back. I think they may go out and try to bolster the defensive line a bit. We'll see what they do too with some of the other positions. They could use an upgrade as punter. And the thing is, people may laugh at this, but there's some good punters in this draft. I'm not saying, go out and use a second round or third round pick, but in the later rounds for sure, especially with a team as good as the Bills already, you're deep at a lot of the position groups. So, using a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder on a punter isn't the craziest thing, especially when there's pretty good punting talent in this draft. So, I think really for the Bills, the mission will be to really add to what they have and maintain their status as a Super Bowl contender, which I think is important, and maybe shore up some of these positions where they think they're a little bit weaker. I do want to make a piggyback on something that Ritz said, which is, I think that we are entering this era where, receivers are a bit devalued. I think a lot of that's due to the quarterbacks. If you get a good quarterback, then if that quarterback has good rapport with anybody that comes in, then you don't necessarily need to keep these receivers at such a high price. And I think Aaron Rodgers has proved that over the years with his rapport with different receivers that have come in through that door. I think to some degree, Josh Allen's already established that he, you look at a guy like Cole Beasley. Why could the Bills part ways with Beasley? Well, because Josh Allen can, have a 100-yard day with Isaiah McKenzie of all players. Not to diminish Isaiah McKenzie, but he's like the Bills' 4th or 5th option at that point. So I think in the NFL and the Tyreek Hill situation is a great example. Mahomes showed last year, and he's really shown this throughout his career, but I think especially last year, he was throwing to guys that these guys were having big days when they weren't necessarily viewed that way. Like they're the fourth and fifth option, and like Byron Pringle was catching touchdowns all the time. You've got Demarcus Robinson there, and some of these other guys, Travis Kelce, of course, big time tight end. But at receiver, the Chiefs are pretty deep. So, to say that you're losing Tyreek Hill, obviously great player, but it's not like the Chiefs are going to be, desperate for wide receiver help, and especially when you have Mahomes throwing the ball. So I think we are entering this era where, getting a good quarterback, great quarterback, is important. And then that kind of affects how you make your decisions going forward, because if that quarterback has a good rapport with any of those receivers that come in and can build those kinds of relationships, and your offense is a well-rounded, spread offense, then, paying $20 million for one receiver isn't going to be in the cards, just like paying an astronomical amount for a running back isn't going to be a thing teams do, because to Ritz's point, you can get those guys in the draft probably, and if you build up all the good parts around your team, you won't need to shell out a lot of money or a high pick for those positions.
But before, I think we're going to move on and talk a little baseball, a little Castro here. But before we do that, I just want to ask Robert, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet. How do you feel about the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to whoop Josh Allen both on the golf course this year and on the football field later this fall? What are your thoughts on that? Because I mean, Allen's already 0-1 against Rodgers. We know what happened in Lambeau Field a few years ago. Maybe he'll actually get a point this time around. But I just wonder how you feel that your boy is about to take a couple more L's to my guy.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I think, I'm excited for the match. I think that's going to be a fun thing. Who else is playing that? Brady and Rodgers and Allen and Mahomes, right?
Yeah, they're doing teams. The young guns versus the old bucks.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm excited for that one. I think that those guys, they're capable golfers. I don't think it'll be a total poop show. So it should be fun, and I do think that if Phil Mickelson wasn't flirting with the Saudis, that maybe we would have seen like some combination of Mickelson and Josh Allen in the mix. But alas, here we are. As for taking L's, I mean, look, I'm not worried about Aaron Rodgers. Okay, this guy can't figure out definitions of words, and his love life is in shambles one day to the next, and he's got quite the resume here. So and he lost his top receiver, which apparently he wasn't. He was surprised by. So I'm not worried about it. I think he plays in a weak conference. I think the Packers will be okay there, but we all know the big boys are in the AFC.
All right, so we're going to move the baseball. Auburn's native son, Tim LeCastro, is having some fun with the New York Yankees. He's getting in as a pinch runner. He's scoring runs. He's stealing bases. He started yesterday, got the start in center field, which still blows me away when you think about it. I mean, you think like, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Mickey Rivers, Bernie Williams, Tim LeCastro. I mean, they've all played center field for the Yankees. It's still incredible to think about it. And I'm not saying
Kobe Ellsbury.
Okay, I'm not saying Tim's in that class, but I mean, he is getting playing time with the Yankees. He's contributing. The Yankees are in first place. They swept the lowly Orioles, and Tim had himself a game yesterday. I mean, he got on base all 4 times, a couple walks, reached on an error, and basically an infield single. And stole a base, got caught once, although I thought he was safe. I thought the hand got in before the tag, but they replayed it and they said he was out, but I thought he got in. But he's the thing is, and Robert, you can speak to this better than me possibly, but he's not going to be a starter unless someone gets hurt, okay? But for coming off the bench and for spot starts, he's making his presence felt. He's getting the job done. He's doing what the Yankees need him to do, which is get on base And if you get on base, whether it's a pinch runner or whatever, you're making things happen. You're scoring runs. He scored the tying run the other day. I mean, he's making the most of his limited chances, and that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking to him for 3 years now, four major league seasons, and the thing that impresses me the most is that his message has been the same, regardless of what team he's playing for, the situation, whatever. He just wants to do what wins the team games. And yesterday he did just that. They were losing 2-0. He leads off the fifth inning and reaches on an error, which I think the official score wouldn't give him credit for this, but if you notice that on ground balls hit, like teams are aware now, like this guy has speed. We need to get the ball out. We need to get the ball to first quickly. And so I think, the third baseman for the Orioles, made a great play to get there, but knew that he had to get the throw off. And I think that factored into that play. If the throw is good, yeah, is he out? Yeah. But his speed, I think, was a factor there, and that sparked the rally. The Yankees scored 4 runs, and they don't look back from there. And he factored into some other scoring plays later in the game as well. On that one I just mentioned, he scored from first on a double hit to left field, which Chris, Yankee Stadium, not the deepest left field in the bigs, and that ball wasn't hit to the gaps. So that shows you how fast that guy is, that he was able to score there. So, I think, an important thing that I think he's showing is that there is room for players like him in the majors. And I think we're starting to see the shift because of certain players that should go nameless that, don't necessarily hit for average and hit a lot of home runs. Well, that's all well and good, but, you need players on base to score. You can't just rely on occasional home runs, especially when you're getting 600 at bats a year and you're hitting 40 home runs. That's a lot of wasted ABs there. So I think he's a guy that, he gets on base, let the power hitters and the guys like Judge and Stanton do the dirty work of driving in the runs, and he'll score. And he scored 2 yesterday. So I think that's a big thing. And I think the Yankees, value that. Credit to Aaron Boone. I think he gave some shout outs to LeCastro yesterday in his post-game press conference. LeCastro has benefited from guys like Boone and Torey Lovello, the manager out in Arizona, who, they didn't come up in this era, and I might sound like Shira here, this analytics-driven era where it's all about, about that. They have a little bit of an old school sense. Aaron Boone, the son of Bob Boone, who used to make some annual trips to Auburn when he was with the Nationals, and Doubledays had that affiliation. He's grown up in the game, so he knows the value of what these different players can bring. And same thing with Lovello. So I think he's benefited from those situations, and it's really worked to, I think, ensure that he stays a major leaguer, because these guys realize that, hey, there's something to be said for speed. There's something to be said for guys that find a way to get on base. He walked twice, yesterday. So, he's known for getting hit by pitches and all these things. So I think that's a big thing. And the Yankees recognize that. And I think that's a big reason why he's on the roster, a big reason why he got called up as soon as he did. And, he's a guy that can make things happen, even if it's pinch running late in games. They've really used him in a lot of different ways this year. And I think that'll continue. I think obviously there's a big decision coming up here. Maybe they do keep him around. Maybe they want to go with, more pitchers or whatever. We'll see. But I think he's certainly made a case that he should stay with the big league club for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Justin, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a column, I think it was last year, about just the fact that Tim LeCastro is he's such a throwback player in terms of making action happen on the bases. Like, yeah, he's not one of those guys who's gonna, slug 35 home runs. That's not his style. Obviously, he hit a home run the other day, so he is capable of doing so from time to time. But I think one of the big topics that's happened this first kind of month of the season and really over the last 10 days or so, as we're starting to see some of these statistics pile up, is that home runs are way down. That some people are criticizing the baseballs themselves. Maybe there's just teams' approach is not so do or die with the home runs, and that's been a big focal point on like why people, and obviously Chris is right here, he's done it plenty, but why people have criticized baseball in recent years is it's turned into less of a hitter's game and making things happen on the bases versus just hit home runs, because pitchers are so good that that's the only way we can score. Like, we can't string together 2 or 3 hits to bring runs home, so we just got to aim for the fences. That's not LeCastre's game, and as long as baseball starts transforming or transitioning back to more of maybe an 80s style that wasn't so reliant on home runs, that's only going to benefit him, because that is his game. He's only had 9 plate appearances so far this year, but his numbers are hard to argue. Like, he's getting on base 44% of the time. I'm sure if he were to get more plate appearances, that's like a Mike Trout level on base percentage. So I'm sure that number would go down. But at some point, like, you look at who he's competing with for at bats, and how long are you going to give at bats to Joey Gallo, who's hitting 150? I know that you've invested money in that guy, but at some point he's an automatic out, and he's not doing anything on the base paths. And when he does get on, and he's not the defensive player that LeCastre is. So at some point, like, you just kind of have to assess your roster and assess who's performing and who's not, and say, you know what, maybe LeCastre isn't an everyday starter, but we need to give him more opportunities other than just, be a pinch runner or come in as a defensive replacement late in games. So yeah. I'll be curious what the Yankees choose to do with him too. I think, like I said before the season, this is an important year for him, considering his age, and considering the injury that he's coming off of. He really needed to kind of establish himself, in kind of a role, and he's done that. You can't argue with the level of his performance so far this season. And we'll see if he gets increased opportunities if he's able to continue this pace. But he's been valuable to the Yankees so far, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, all right, guys, anything else you want to discuss? Or you want to call it a day?
Well, I just want to congratulate our good friend Ritz on his engagement. He decided to pop the question, which I've been there. Chris forgot what that was like. It was so long ago, but
last century.
It was last century. It's a special time. Enjoy it. The engagement period, planning the wedding. It'll be good, and a memorable day ahead, no doubt. Congratulations to you, Ritz. Good for you. A lifetime of happiness awaits.
And I second that. And Justin, congrats. Great news. Very happy for you. Your fiance is a very lucky girl. And I'm sorry. Oh, well. So anyways, it'll be fun. It will be a fun time. Something you'll look back on with fond memories as you get older. So.
Well, I will say, and I appreciate your guys' congratulations. I will say it's funny that so much planning goes into just trying to make sure the proposal goes right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, that all goes according to plan, relatively speaking. And it's like, oh, it was just a big sigh of relief, It's like, oh, wait, no, actually, you got to go actually plan a wedding, which is tougher and more time consuming and even more expensive. Yep. So there's no rest for the weary here. So, but I appreciate that, and obviously we're really excited, and Yeah.
Yeah, Robert wants to plan the bachelor party, though, right, Robert?
Oh no. I don't want to plan anything.
No,
I want zero
you got
responsibility.
you got your hands full, no doubt about that. So yeah,
Yeah, I want zero responsibilities.
yeah, I get that completely.
Want
So
nothing. People ask me to, join different things and this and that. It's like, no thanks.
No.
I've got enough covering, daily activities and being a dad and all that jazz. I don't need your piddly ass extracurriculars.
all right, folks. Then I don't know when we're going to be back. I can't say next week. Definitely will not be next week. But I think sometime in the summer. I think that we maybe we'll do a season training camp kickoff show. Maybe we'll get our good friend Bob Sosi to join us for that one sometime during the summer. He's always very good about joining us, and we always appreciate having him. So, all right, folks. Well, hey, thanks for joining us now, and hey, we'll see you down the road sometime.